Welcome back to the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show. Happy you're with us today. Moments away, author Ryan McEnaney. But first, word from our friends at Simple Grow. Holly?
Are you worried about your plant growth? Provide your plants with what they need to grow to their potential. Simple Grow offers 100% organic worm castings. Unlike other worm casting products, when you order from Simple Grow, you're getting 100% worm castings, not filler plus castings. Promote ideal soil structure and aeration with Simple Grow's all-natural and odor-free worm castings. There's only one ingredient, worm castings. No chemicals or additives will seep into your food, and it doesn't smell like other fertilizers. For indoor and outdoor use, you can order by the bag, bundle, ton, or truckload. You can go to simplegrow.com.
Holly, let's go to the Proclamation Hotline, brought to you by Proclamation Goods, and bring in our guest for this week.
Ryan McEnaney is a fifth-generation family member and owner at Bailey Nurseries, a 150-year-old nursery headquartered outside of St. Paul, Minnesota. In his role at the nursery, he has been quoted in a number of nationwide publications, has appeared on many television programs throughout the United States, and travels the country educating homeowners on how to be successful in the garden. His approach revolves around fun, breaking down barriers to gardening, and creating welcoming space to collaborate. His new book, Field Guide to Outside Style, will be out in December. Welcome to the program, Ryan.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we thank you for taking time out of your day to not only educate Holly and myself, but all of our listeners. And I'll start with this. You are a fifth-generation nursery owner. Was this something that you wanted to do or felt you had to do, or what was it? Because, you know, if you're a farmer boy, sometimes you feel like you have to take over it, or you own a business and your dad. Was it something that you wanted to do or kind of was forced to, or what was the story there?
So it's really interesting. So many people in my family did have that experience, including our fourth generation, other than one person, which is my mom, who is now fourth generation CEO. She worked outside the business. And so for us in the fifth generation, of which there's only two of us in the business so far, they set a different rule and said, go out, do something else first, so that when you come back into it, you really want to be here. And so my background is not in horticulture. I was an entertainment publicist in LA for a number of years, and then felt that longing, as a good Midwesterner, to come back to Minnesota and get back into the business. So I've been back at Bailey for about 9 years full time now.
But going to Los Angeles, that had to be quite a culture shock, was it?
It was very different. It was a lot different from how I grew up and a lot different from what I do now. But you know what? It was a great experience. And especially for someone that works in marketing and PR, it was really transformative for how I think about engaging people and thinking really big, no matter the budget, and being able to drive some excitement around people and products. So it was a great experience, but I'm very glad to be back digging in the dirt and talking about plants.
Fantastic. Now, in your book, you advise people to have a date night with their garden space before they make changes. So first of all, what does that mean? And do you think many people overlook this, and why familiarizing yourself with your space, why is that so important?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's really easy just to jump straight into looking at pretty pictures, looking at design plans that are listed online. But for you to have long-term success, you really have to start by understanding what that framework of your garden and what your space offers. And it's, think about like building a house. You have to have that foundation before you can put any walls up, or it's all going to crumble. And so, I try and take things out, make them a little bit more fun and less intimidating, especially if you're new to gardening. You don't consider yourself a gardener, but want that really pretty outdoor space. Or even if you're a master gardener, you really have to understand soil. You have to understand the light, what the exposure is in the different parts of your yard. But, if you just think about it in that framework, it's maybe not that exciting. And so I approached it as doing day dates or night dates at home and making an event around each of those different key characteristics of understanding your space. And so you can have a little bit of fun with it. Then you can break down, again, some of those barriers, so not so scary, and understand what the boundaries, or as I like to think about them, the opportunities of your yard, what that offers, because ultimately that's what's going to set those guardrails for what you're able to use. If you've got a full shade garden, you're maybe not going to have that beautiful, colorful cottage garden that you were thinking about with all the flowers. Doesn't mean you can't have color and texture and excitement, but it might just change how you approach it. So making sure that you really understand that at the beginning is really important to ultimately set yourself up for success, because no one wants to get in and start doing it and put all that work and time and energy and money into it and then fail because you saw a pretty picture online, but maybe you saw a picture from a zone 8 garden and you're like me in zone 4. That's not going to work year over year. So having that understanding, that foundation is really, really important to start off with.
And as a nursery owner, obviously you like people when they come and buy stuff, but you would want them to buy once, have a good experience, and not go have to buy 6 or 7 plants because they keep buying the wrong plant for the wrong place.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all about place. You're spot on. And yeah, we don't want people to fail and then feel like they have to come back out of necessity. Especially how I like to approach design and teaching people how to play with plants, is have them have success first and want to come back and find a really cool companion plant. Or say you've maybe got a space that's already a little bit filled up, then let's do a deco pot. Let's find a way to build in annuals or edibles into the space so that it's a fun, enjoyable experience rather than getting frustrated around it.
Well, tell us more about your book, Field Guide to Outdoor Style. What is something unique or intriguing that our listeners would want to pick up the book? And I believe the book is available on pre-order right now. Is that correct?
It is. It's available for pre-order now, just about anywhere. Amazon, Target, Barnes & Noble, on my website, ryanplants.com. But my approach, again, is to try and have some of that fun with it. And so starting with those date nights, again, that just helps familiarize yourself with it. But the other piece of what I really try to do with this book, especially, again, for those newer nog gardeners, they're like, how do you even start digging into all of this design? Because it can be really overwhelming. Is really just helping you understand what your aesthetic is. And it might be what you appreciate about furniture, fashion, finding ways of how you connect and how you see the world around you and what you really appreciate. And then how do we draw that into what you're doing in the garden? Because again, you might not know where to start, and you do a lot of Googling, you do a lot of magazine reading, listen to radio shows, but it's like, okay, what's step number 1? And so if we can get people to understand what it is that they really appreciate aesthetically about the world around them, then from there, dig into like, what does my space allow me to do? Then from there, what I help people do is we have a whole section on guardrails, which is like kind of not always the sexy stuff. Like you have to talk about budget and you have to talk about all the hardscaping and all those things that are really, really important. But then what I do is I take people through different personalities to help, again, sort of narrow that focus. Like, do you like this really beautiful wild space? Do you like a little bit more refined? Or do you like very clean lines, simplistic plantings, very modern, very chic? And then from there, help build out some recipe cards. So again, I want to make this really, really easy for you. It doesn't matter where you live in the country. It doesn't matter what that design style is. We break that down into those recipe cards that will help you get a really solid plant list to start from that is relevant for you. So say you don't want to spend a ton of money. You don't ultimately want to do that much work. You live in zone 4, zone 5, and you really like a native planting style. There's going to be recipe cards in the book for you. If you live on the total opposite extreme, there's going to be recipe cards in there for you too. So again, try to make it really digestible, really, really fun for you to be able to get in and connect with that personality type. Just makes it a little bit more approachable and fun. And then with the layout of the book, it's, if you just want to flip through because you've got 5 minutes, go to those recipe card pages, see what you are drawn to. If you've got an hour or two, dig in and read some of it. So it gives you a little bit of both of those approaches that helps make it a really digestible book.
Fantastic. So what are some common outside garden design mistakes people will often make?
I think one of them is kind of like I mentioned earlier, that it's easy to go scroll through Instagram, go to a website and say, oh, there's a garden design. I'm going to go to the garden center and I'm going to get everything that's listed on there. Because again, you don't always know where to start. So that's one that can be really, really challenging and really frustrating. So again, have to dig in, understand what your space offers, how much time you really want to invest in it, not only today, but next month, next year, 2 years down the line, and understand that space. And then number two, I think one of the other things that I talk about with people a lot is really understanding what the plants do, because you might see them in a garden center and they're in a 2-gallon pot and they're 18 inches tall, and you say, that looks great and that fits. Well, 3 years down the line, it might be 6 feet tall and totally overtaking a space. Or think of something like an azalea that needs acidic soil. Here in Minnesota, I've got really alkaline soil, so it just isn't going to thrive. So understanding the plants is another piece that's really, really important, in addition to understanding what your space has to offer.
Well, I want to touch on this before we let you go. You grow a lot of hydrangeas. How many varieties of hydrangeas are there, and what is the biggest mistake you're seeing people make when they're trying to grow them?
Well, there are hundreds of varieties that, like, you can't even start to count. There are a couple books, though, that you could find. Dr. Michael Durr has a great new book out. He's sort of like the godfather of hydrangeas in North America. So he's one that you might be able to find in the book that lists all the varieties. But what I would say is there are 4 main species of hydrangea. The big leaf hydrangea, which is like the endless summer, that classic Nantucket, Cape Cod hydrangea with the big, beautiful, colorful blooms. That's a really big one. Another one, panicle hydrangeas, those cone-shaped flowers. That's like a vanilla strawberry, berry white, little hottie. Those are another one of my favorites, especially for those of us in colder climates. The oak leaf hydrangea, which the leaf looks like an oak, blooms a little bit earlier, native to North America, great fall color, really, really amazing. And then smooth hydrangea, like an Annabelle. So those are the 4 main types. And when you ask about where people struggle, that's the first most important thing, is understanding what type of hydrangea you have, because all of the care tips depend on that. And they're different. A big leaf hydrangea, for example, you don't want to cut back in fall because they bloom traditionally on the previous season's growth. So if you cut them back, you're not going to get any flowers the next year, unless you have a rebloomer like Endless Summer, which there's a new one coming out next year called Pop Star, which is a flower power machine. But even still, if you cut it back in fall, you're going to miss that whole first set of blooms. So having that understanding around what type of hydrangea is first and foremost, and then from there, you can figure out the care tips.
Great. Well, we've really enjoyed having you on the program, Ryan. How can people find out more about you? And I know you talked about how to get your book earlier, but why don't you remind everybody?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really, really appreciated being here and had so much fun chatting with you guys. But if you want to find out more, you can find me on Instagram, Ryan Plants Plants, and same for the website, ryanplantsplants.com. So you'll be able to find the book there, but also tons of videos and other helpful tips that we produce. And I'll be out doing a bunch of tours all around North America as well. So you can hopefully find me in your neighborhood over the next 6-7 months.
Well, Ryan, we greatly appreciate the time you've offered us and the education that you provided in our short period of time, and we thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. And when we...
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.